Okay.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Anything Liverpool live stream. Apologies for the lateness of ourselves this evening. However, we did have some technical difficulties on my side. Wi-Fi has only been invented in Ireland, and we're working out the kinks of it at the moment. So that's the problem that we've had at the minute. But we have basically gotten everything sorted. So thank you so much for joining us on this wonderful midweek stream with myself, Ben, Dylan, and Reid. Thank you so much for joining us, and make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure that you have your notifications on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out as well. We will be live again from Friday. We'll have Friday, Saturday, Sunday streams this week with the Man United game at the weekend. We'll have a Friday stream, we'll have a Saturday pre-game stream, and we'll have our post-game stream on Sunday. But before we get into all of that, we will get into the news, I suppose. And lots of news has been floating around with names such as Nico Schlotterbeck. Upamecano is another one. I think I've after butchering his name, but fuck it. I don't think we'll sign him, so I don't need to worry about it. We also had Semenyo, we had Michael Elise, and then we also had very, very recently today, we had Bradley Barcola in the news as well. So lots and lots and lots of transfer talk going around. And obviously the lads doing very well on their international duty, which I feel people are blowing a little bit out of proportion because they're playing part-timers a lot of the time. Like Szoboszlai and Kirkes were playing Armenia and Ireland, for fuck's sake. They're part-timers, and me and Dylan can attest to the latter part of that anyway. When it comes to, and then the likes of Ekitike, who's playing Azerbaijan, who all have to go to work tomorrow morning, and is what it is. But before we get into all of that, I'll go around to the panel mates, see what they thought of all of the international duty, if any of them will bring their form home. Obviously, the latest of which was Alexis McAllister, who bagged 2 goals and an assist last night against, was it Puerto Rico they were playing?
Yep.
I think it was Puerto Rico they were playing. But we'll go around and we'll see what everybody's thoughts are. Who's going to bring the form home? Who isn't? What do we think maybe changes for the weekend, if anything at all? Ben, I'll come to you first. How did you find the international break? Were you enjoying any of the games? Did you even watch any of the games? And who do you think will bring home their international form the most? Because Szoboszlai was getting goals and assists. Salah started bagging goals. And then we obviously then had Ekitike getting an assist and doing very well against Azerbaijan. And then you had McAllister getting his 2 goals last night. So how do you feel about the form of the players that are coming home? Who's probably going to translate that form to club games quickly?
Hopefully all of them, because we need them to. We need to start winning. But I think obviously if you're looking at, you'd assume Salah would. He needed a bit of confidence. Maybe hopefully McAllister can get some confidence and some momentum now. Ekitike, I mean, he was delivering anyway, so same as usual from him. Wirtz was good. He could have had a couple of assists. Apparently, people don't know how to finish when it's his passes they're on the end of. But yeah, it all depends on how Slot uses them, because I've said this before and I'll say it again. I don't think he's been using most of these players properly to their strengths. So it's on Slot as much as it is the players, and I trust Slot to do that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Some of these guys, I think it's just a change to the new system is what's there, and there's a couple of teething problems at the moment. Reeve, how have you felt that the international break has gone? We've obviously gotten through it with no injuries to report on, other than maybe Konate coming home a little bit early, but I don't think it's serious at all. Nobody has reported it to be serious at all, and he's expected to play against United. Similarly, Gravenberch was taken off at half-time, so everybody is assumed to be fit and healthy. How have you felt about the form during the international break? Do you think there's much to be read into it? And how well do you think that form will translate now to the game at the weekend?
Well, I think first and foremost, the international break came at a good time this time. Normally, the international break don't come at a good time. You just want to keep the momentum going. When you lose 3 games on the bounce, it's kind of good to, give Slot a bit of time to himself, give the players to go to a new environment, kind of have a bit of a reset. And I think it's went pretty well. For me personally, I haven't watched many games, but, from what we're seeing of the players, there's been a lot of goals, a lot of assists, a lot of positive talk. And as you say, you've just got to be as positive as you can, hope that some of these players will bring the form back to Liverpool. You can't read too much into it at the same extent, because, it is a different game, international football, than it is to club football. And obviously the standard of the Premier League is the best in the world. So from the players I've seen, obviously I just hope that the players who have been very below par this season bring that form back. The likes of McAllister, who's just looked a shadow of his former self. When McAllister plays well, that's when I feel like the team will start to play better. You know, we've really missed just having him play at a good standard, never mind his high standard, at a good standard. So hopefully bring that home, and hopefully even the same for like Salah. You know, these big players that haven't been performing this season, hopefully they can bring it back to Liverpool, and we can kind of basically say, like, the season starts now. Let's get the momentum going. Let's start again, a fresh start. And we'll see where that goes.
Yeah. Dylan, obviously, it wasn't exactly the most stellar of international breaks for our countrymen, shall we say, with less than stellar results for the Ireland national team. But we do love a late-minute winner to absolutely drown any hopes that we would have had, because if we had drawn that game and then beaten Armenia, we probably would have been in a much better position than we are at the minute. Now we just have to go and get results against two teams that we can't get results against no matter what. But how did you feel about the international break, our own country aside? And who do you think brings the form back to the club? Obviously, Reeve mentioned that Alexi McAllister done very well and seemed to look like his old self. And then Ben mentioned as well, like Ekitike was looking like his usual self.
Yeah, in terms of international football, I'm with Reeve. I haven't watched every minute of every player's games in terms of over the break. For the players I have watched and kind of bits and pieces I have seen of it, a couple of people are looking hopefully back to a little bit of form. It's good to see, even though it was Djibouti, Salah get a couple of goals, and hopefully that can be almost a restart there. From there, we can kind of put the kind of games where he hasn't scored aside, and hopefully then Man United just afterwards, hopefully is the perfect game for Salah to come back straight back in. He loves the goal against them, doesn't he? So hopefully that'll happen. Really good to see McAllister score, get back on the score sheet and have a good game, because he has had a bit of a dip just before the international break. Obviously, with coming back from a couple of injuries and just not the best form on the pitch. So hopefully that can translate back when he comes back into the team as well. But I think another one, even though Sweden didn't do very well, seeing Isak getting more minutes in the tank, I think is going to be a positive as well, because I think he played a full 90, if I read, for the last game, even though they lost to Kosovo.
Yeah.
But yeah, just good to see him get more minutes in the tank, because obviously without pre-season, he used these almost as, we don't care what happened in the international break, so use it as almost a pre-season friendly to us and just get minutes in the tank when he needs them, hopefully for the weekend. Otherwise, just good that no real serious injuries will come back from it or anything like that. That's the main thing you want from the international break. And then hopefully everyone can have a couple of days training, get back into it before Sunday.
Yeah, I don't particularly think Alexi McAllister will be featured much in the game on Sunday, considering his game only finished last night. He's not going to be getting back until probably about now. So his whole recovery is completely fucked for that, whereas the rest of them were coming back earlier in the week. It's going to be interesting, because there's obviously a lot that have, and I'm going to say it now, I don't know how Isak didn't get an assist and a goal in that game against Kosovo. Genuinely baffled as to how, I don't know how I'm supposed to explain it to any person who hasn't watched the game, that Bergvall missed that open goal. I've never seen, we had Darwin Núñez as a striker, and I love Darwin Núñez, but I know he there's times where he couldn't hit a barn door with a shovel. However, I'd put money on him to score that, and Bergvall just decided to fall over his own foot. And then you had people clowning Isak on social media, being like, look, he's still shite and whatnot. And I'm like, literally, Bergvall had it on a plate, and I don't think he could have asked for an easier chance. And he just decided to not kick the ball, I guess is probably the best way you could describe it. But we're going to move on now, following our sort of international break review, and we're going to take a look at some of the comments that are here as well, and we'll get into the news and relate them that way. So make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure that you have your notifications on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out. If you're currently watching on Twitter at the moment, make sure to jump down into the comments below and you will see a link straight to the YouTube channel. Please do leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment, let us know what you think. It's very much appreciated. Now, a couple of comments that are here are coming in obviously about the particular players. Monty here mentioning a new centre back is needed. LFC King mentioning here Semenyo isn't needed. Chimeka here is asking, is Barcola joining Liverpool? We'll touch on that in a moment. And then LFC King mentioned Semenyo is not the answer. We need to trust in Isak and give him our full support. I don't think anybody's not doing that. I think it's more getting another player that will be versatile enough to play both left and right wing on the front line. That's probably where they're looking, considering the Barcola links came as well. But we'll touch on Semenyo and Barcola first, because I like one and I don't like the other, but I want to see what everybody else thinks, and then I'll reveal who I like and who I don't like, even though I'm sure people can already guess at this point. Dylan already knows, I'm sure. But, Reeve, I'll give it to you first on this. The links to Semenyo came about from Alex Crook, who is very reliable for the South Coast teams like Bournemouth, and is very close with Richard Hughes, and was right about an awful lot of things that came through in the summer regarding us. With regards to Semenyo, how do you feel about him as a player, and what are you comfortable paying for him? Because Bournemouth apparently value him at in excess of £75 million, although the deal itself could be an awful lot less depending on the release clause, and it remains to be seen what that is at the moment. But give me your thoughts on the news, give me your thoughts on the player and what you'd be comfortable in paying.
If I'm being honest, there's no doubt Semenyo is a good, proven Premier League player. You know, he's been ripping up the league this season, and obviously we've seen it firsthand in the Bournemouth game, first game of the season. Like, he is a good player, he's a good quality player. He can play multiple positions across the front line. But what I will say is that for 80 million, or the numbers that are getting talked about, I don't think that's the best use of our money. And I have no doubt that Liverpool probably have Semenyo on their database, you know, of players. You know, they've probably got who can play in front of. The only thing I can think about with this Semenyo link is, obviously it's Bournemouth, there's the Richard Hughes link. I think it's an easy talking point for people to report on. And I also believe that this signing kind of aligns with the fact that we do need some more homegrown players, and Semenyo is a homegrown player. So I think we are going to be linked to more English players, if we've seen with Gay and as with Semenyo. I know Semenyo is not actually for the English national team, but he is a homegrown player.
Yeah,
exactly. But then on the other side, I'm like, why would we want to spend 80 million, or even, I probably wouldn't even be comfortable paying 60, 70 for him, because he's an AFCON player. We have this issue with Salah, and I just think we can spend that money somewhere else in other positions, or even in the same position, or we can spend a little bit more and get a lot more value for our money. And I think Liverpool right now, for the last 10 years, or I say, we're all about value. How much are you going to get for your money? You know, if we think 125 million for Isak's valuable, we're going to pay that. But, you know, for my opinion, I wouldn't say anywhere between 80 million is not valuable for a Bournemouth player, especially a forward, when we've got plenty of options there right now.
Yeah, I'd be in agreement on that. I'm not necessarily a fan of Semenyo, just I think he's running a little bit hot at the moment. And last season, he was just unbelievably wasteful with his shots. I think he took 120 shots to get 8 goals. That's something that won't fly in our system whatsoever. Now, he started this season very, very well, Dylan, but I think he has 9 goals and assists. So I think it's 6 goals, 3 assists in 8 games. But his expected is about half of that. So his expected GA and his actual GA, he's doubled his expected outcome, more or less. Obviously, it doesn't sound sustainable, but if he was to keep this form up for the season, give me your thoughts as well, same as the question that I gave to Reeve. What's your thoughts on sort of the player himself? Do you feel that it's value for money with the numbers that are being thrown around? Is it a bit similar to the Alexi McAllister situation, where there was an agreement kept under wraps because it might end up causing a bidding war for the player and so many teams come in for him, and then we got Alexi McAllister for pennies compared to what the player is actually worth? What are your thoughts around the whole situation? Is this just agents talking perhaps as well?
Yeah, I think we had a similar chat last week on the call, the thing with Reeve and Charlie last week as well. We had a similar conversation where we were talking. It feels like an easy conversation because of, like Reeve just said there, the Richard Hughes kind of connections in between it all and stuff. And it wouldn't surprise me if having just come out with this release clause during the week that they're talking about, that hasn't really been mentioned, the price around the release clause. It wouldn't surprise me if, to get him to sign a new contract, they said to him, look, try and get us into Europe during this season. If we don't get into Europe, you can go for X amount. If we get into Europe, you can go for X amount, or we can keep you for another couple of years. It wouldn't surprise me if something like that has been involved in the kind of process to it. But again, it's just speculation on that front, isn't it? Whether anything like that would be in place. I'm kind of in agreement with kind of what Reed was just saying there. 80 odd million, if it is somewhere around there, 70, 80 odd million, it feels like a lot. I don't doubt he's a good player, but do I think he's a great player? I think he's in a kind of purple patch at the moment during the Premier League this season where everything is going right. But when you look at his overall stats in the Premier League, I know he's still only young, but relatively young. 25, I think he is, isn't he? When you look at his overall stats, I think he's something like 25, 26 goals in nearly 90 games or something like that. So a 1 in 2, 1 in 3 player, 1 in just over 3 player. I think his stats over half a goal and assists. I think he's 38 in goal and assists, but 26 in goals, something. So if you're looking 1 in just over 3 for goals and assists in his Premier League time, if you're in our system and we want our wingers to kind of be producing, is that going to fly every week? You don't know. And equally, when you look at the way he kind of fits into Bournemouth's system, most of his goals are on kind of a counter-attack types of situations where we control a little bit more and we expect a little bit more kind of build-up from our wingers in those fronts as well. Will that suit us? I don't really know whether that would suit his style of play as well. So there's a kind of a lot of factors that are involved in it, or whether it would be. I wouldn't, if he came in, I wouldn't be upset. But equally, I wouldn't be chasing the signing. Is kind of where I would sit on it.
Yeah, I'd be of a very similar opinion to that. Bournemouth have less over the last 2 seasons where he sort of has had his bit of a breakout. In this current season and last season, Bournemouth have only averaged, I think it's about 44% possession. So to your point of saying they're in transition a lot because they don't have the ball and then they break, which is where Semenyo gets an awful lot of his goals from, is against unset defenses. He immediately comes to us and all of a sudden now he's facing low blocks every game, bar maybe 4 or 5 games in a season. And any player that is a good dribbler or is a dribbler or is somebody that loves to attack in transition immediately becomes nullified because of those low blocks. It's one stick that's used to beat Cody Gakpo with quite a lot, even though he's unbelievably efficient at creating chances now against low blocks. If some of them came off, they'd be fine, but some of them haven't. I think he's second to Salah, I think the top 3 in the team at the moment is Salah, Gakpo, and Wirtz in chances created across all competitions so far. So it's not like he's doing nothing. But everybody needs a whipping boy during the season, and it just so happens that Gakpo is that this season, unfortunately. Last season it was Szoboszlai, this season it's Gakpo. Last season it was the Colombian Chuckle brothers in Diaz and Nunez, and now you have people saying, oh, well, we miss Diaz, and everybody's like, it's hilarious how fickle football fans are, to be perfectly honest with you. Everybody was happy to get 80 million odd for a soon-to-be 29-year-old winger that relies on agility and speed, who went to a slower league and looks like he's playing in a slower league because of how quick he looks compared to it. Like if you're running at 100 miles an hour and then all of a sudden you go and race against people that only run at 80 miles an hour, all of a sudden you're going to look like an absolute beast. Not to say that he was ever a bad player, but the fact that we got the deal that we got was too good to turn down. There's no way you're turning down 80 odd million and a 10% sell-on clause for a guy that's about to be 29 and will start slowing down soon. But I digress. Ben, Semenyo himself has been one of the best players so far in the Premier League. How do you feel about the signing if it was to happen? Do you feel that it's a good signing? Is it a good allocation of funds? Or do you feel that those funds could be used elsewhere better? I suppose it kind of comes down to the fact as well as what's the release clause? Because it's all well and good Bournemouth turning around and saying we value him at 75 million, but if the release clause turns around and it's only 40 million, you'd nearly jump at that.
Yeah, honestly, that would be exactly like the McAllister release clause, where everyone thought he'd go for around 60 to 70, especially after the World Cup campaign he did have with Argentina. But he ended up going for 35 million, which is for what he should have been worth. It's pennies. So if he is under around 50 million, you jump at it. He's proven in this league. He's shown what he can do, including that brace at Anfield. So, but if it's anything above that set price, like 60 or 55 million, you kind of avoid it because there's better players for the same price, like Barcola or Nico Williams or something.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think a lot of people are missing as well is he has 4 years left in his contract as of next summer. In my opinion, there's no I just don't see how Bournemouth could have basically had their pants pulled down over this when they could have very easily not done a release clause or anything like that and comfortably gotten near 100 million from him, because somebody stupid would have paid that, like United, or even Arsenal, to be perfectly honest with you. But it'll be interesting to see how it develops. I personally think that there are better players out there, but price dependent. If they're demanding £80 million for him, I'd nearly rather go and get Bradley Barcola, or I'd rather go and try and get Olise out of Bayern, or I'd go to Lyon and get Malik Fofana and then go buy a centre back in Schlotterbeck for the same price. That's the way that I'd look at it. But we're going to move on to, obviously, the name that I just mentioned there in Bradley Barcola. So before we do that, make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure that you have your notifications on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out. Make sure that if you are watching on X at the moment or Twitter at the moment, make sure to jump down into the comments below. You will see the link to our YouTube page. So make sure you jump into that and give us a like, give us a subscription, give us a comment, tell us we're good, we're bad, we're ugly, we're pretty, we're gorgeous. We'll take all of it. But we're going to take a look now at the next bit of news, which is another winger who is versatile that can play all across the front three, and that's Bradley Barcola of PSG. Reports coming out from L'Equipe, which is one of the most reliable sources in France, that talks have been ongoing for months but have stalled for a lot of that time regarding Bradley Barcola, and both Liverpool and Bayern Munich are interested in the young winger. Now, in my opinion, I think it'll be very difficult to get a French 23-year-old out of the French team that just won the Champions League for the first time and is the French champions year on year on year. It all depends on what Luis Enrique wants to do with him, however, because Desiree Doué is also coming through, and it really sort of depends on how he wants to structure that front three, because it may be too many cooks in the kitchen kind of a job where one of them has to be sacrificed, and they're not going to get rid of the Ballon d'Or winner in Dembele. They're probably not going to get rid of the guy that they just signed in Kvaratskhelia less than 12 months ago, and they may end up just letting Desiree Doué come through. So Bradley Barcola may be the odd man out in that situation, but it comes at a similar situation to Semenyo of how much are you willing to pay for him. Now, last season, Bradley Barcola had 21 goals and 18 assists in all competitions. So far this season, he has 3 goals and 3 assists. But then you also need to factor in his PSG tax. They play relegation fodder in the Premier League level on a consistent basis. Their closest rivals are, I think, Marseille or Lyon, and Opta done a thing based on how their power rankings of each opponent, and they've done it across all 5 leagues in Europe. And PSG's nearest rivals would barely scrape relegation safety in the Premier League. So Ben, 21 goals and 18 assists. You mentioned earlier in the group chat that you judge PSG and Bayern Munich players more so on their Champions League performances than their actual league performances. If the price for Semenyo is 80 million and the price for Barcola is 80 million, are you picking one over the other?
Yeah, I'm picking Barcola.
Okay.
He's 3 years younger, I think. Yeah, 2-3 years younger. He does. Don't need any.
Yeah.
And he's faster. He's more tacky. He's better. He's better settled defenses. And
that's yeah. To be fair, that's a true point on the settled defense, considering how many PSG would play. You can see obviously the influence there with that, but Dylan, one thing that I would worry about him, he's nearly as tall as Gakpo, but he weighs less than Harvey Elliott. Do you feel like that sort of? I'm not even joking, Reeve. You can look that up. Harvey Elliott.
I'm gonna check that in a minute.
He's on FBRF. He's 63 kg. Harvey Elliott is 68. Yeah, you can check it. Harvey Elliott's a heavier man than Bradley Barcola. For example, and Cody Gakpo is nearly 80 kg, I believe. Yeah, you can look it up. Anybody that wants to look that up, because I've looked it up myself. He's nearly as tall as Gakpo, and he's lighter than Harvey Elliott. Dylan, do you feel like somebody with that sort of a physical build would last in the Premier League, or do you feel they would be bullied? Because I think they'd be bullied. And that's my one gripe with Barcola. I feel he'd be too slight and he'd just get shoved off the ball way too much.
I mean, yes and no in a way, because he manages against the Champions League teams, he still plays okay and well enough against them. And realistically, all of the kind of French teams, PSG's their cup final, and he never seems to get bullied. And I know it's a different kind of standard, but equally, they are just going to go to set up a back five against them and try and block in the same types of way. So he manages against them. What I would say is he still looks that way. He looks like he's a young player still coming through, rather than someone who's settled in the team when you watch them play. What I would say is, similarly, like you just said to Ben, for the same type of money, he's probably the more promising prospect in terms of the two. Whether I know Semenyo's got his purple patch at the moment now, where he looks like his stats are there. But if you compared the two potentially over the last 2 or 3 seasons, he probably would still edge towards Barcola. But what I would say is it feels a little bit like the conversation we had almost a year ago when we were talking about Zaire Emery, when he was in a similar type of situation. Yeah. It feels like somebody trying to use the contracts, use the talks, like you said, a French player in the French team, using the contracts of other teams that could potentially be interested just to get a better contract at PSG. It doesn't feel to me like anything that really has any kind of legs to it or might take off, because I feel like they'll just want to push on for the French national team to keep them all together, to keep them all kind of competing for Champions League. So that's how I see that kind of playing out in my own mind.
Yeah. Reeve, would you be of a similar opinion? Because I think I'd be of that opinion as well, because they obviously, Barcola's, it's a negotiating game where the agent says, we want X, the team is saying, we're only going to give you Y. So the agent says, cool, we're going to explore our options. And then the team is like, no, we may come a bit closer to X. That kind of a way. It's always been the way it's paper talk. Do you feel it's very much like that as well? It's a French player and a French team that's just seen a French player in the same French team win the Ballon d'Or after winning the Champions League, even though they had nearly as many goals and assists as them in the last season as well. I don't think it will happen purely because of the logistics around it. But are you somebody with a bit more faith, or are you of a similar opinion to myself and Dylan?
No, I agree with you. It's this purely a negotiation tactic. As I said with Semenyo before, I've got no doubt Liverpool have got Barcola on a list of names. It's just, when you're looking. The only thing I would say about Barcola, as well as his age profile, is a good age profile for Liverpool, especially in left wingers. Because obviously we've got Rio, who's 16, 17, and our next senior left winger is Gakpo. So if we want 2 players for every position, Barcola will fit in that age profile quite well, because he's 23, 24. I think he's just turned 23 actually, so it suits him that way. And honestly, I'd love Barcola. From what I've watched in the Champions League, I think I'd really like the player. So it'd just be one of them things where if it did happen, obviously great. But if I've got my realism hat on, it's like a French player playing for the French champions, Champions League winners. It's a complete negotiation tactic. To be honest, if I was wanting any French player right now, it'd be Michael Olise. And that's who I'd be going all out in for right now.
Yeah. We've Omnes here asking the question, why would PSG sell Barcola and Bayern sell Olise to us? Bournemouth, I get they're a feeder club. They're not really. And Hughes used to work there. Bayern Munich and PSG are direct rivals. I'll go for the guy dominating in our league. He's not dominating in our league, though. Genuinely is not. If you go and look at the numbers, yes, they look flashy because he has 9 GA in 8 games. But you need to also factor in who he's playing against. Yes, one of them was us. But how the teams he's playing against play. Liverpool play low blocks consistently to try and hit us on the counter. We average over 60% possession per game. Bournemouth average less than 50% possession per game. That stat alone will tell you that Bournemouth are in transition a hell of a lot more than Liverpool are, because they're always sitting back and looking to hit on a counter at a higher rate than what Liverpool will. So Semenyo will face more unsettled defenses than he would at Liverpool. He would suffer the same issues that any winger that plays at Liverpool does, and people are just looking at it from a point of view of, oh, look at his end product, he'll do great. That's not even close to how it would work. Bayern Munich would sell Olise because he might want to come back to the Premier League, having not gotten a move to a Premier League club a year ago, when he left Crystal Palace. And PSG may sell Barcola because he could just be excess. And it's not as if they have a need for money. He may just want to go. Ekitike was a guy that was at PSG and couldn't really get game time. And he left, and now we have him. So that kind of stuff can happen, and that's why I kind of like Ekitike and liked him for quite a while. Instead of sitting as a French player in the French team not getting any minutes, he said, I'm gone, good luck. I'm going to go and carve out my own career. Went to Frankfurt, balled out there, and now got his move to Liverpool and is tearing up the Premier League as it is at the moment. So, and Bayern could just turn around and Olise could say, I want out. And it is what it is, because obviously Liverpool have been in contact with Olise's representatives since he was at Reading, before he even moved. Michael Edwards has fingers in pies all over the place. We liked Olise and wanted him from Reading for about 10 million before he went to Crystal Palace. So there's that, so that's also excuse me, something that will come into it as well. But one of the comments that I want to get at up here is Monty mentioning that we need a centre back most. Ben, would you be in agreement with that statement that a centre back is probably more needed than either one of them two forwards or three forwards that we've mentioned so far in this?
I think we need both, because if Gakpo keeps performing like how he has for Liverpool in comparison to how he performs for the Netherlands, then maybe we will consider moving him on. And I won't be against that if it's for a direct upgrade. But we need a centre back just as much, because, no depth there. And two crooks between Konate and Gomez. And we can't rely on Leone when he's coming off an ACL. And we need both, really.
Yeah, it could be both that could be needed. But obviously you have Upa. So Dylan, the centre backs that we've been looking at have been Nico Schlotterbeck from Borussia Dortmund. We then obviously have Mark Gahey from Crystal Palace. And then we have the Bayern centre back, Upa. I can barely pronounce his name.
I think his name is.
Yeah, that fella, him. But he's also been touted as well because, Mark Gahey and Bayern Boy, I'm just going to call him Bayern Boy rather than getting absolutely tongue-tied. The two of them are basically free agents in the summer. So you can understand the appeal there. Of the three of them, and Ben, I'll come back to you last on this as well and get your opinion on it too. I won't leave you out of it, don't worry. Of the three of them, Schlotterbeck, Bayern Boy, and Mark Gahey, if you had to pick two of them, which two are you getting?
So of the two of them, my first choice of them would be Mark Gahey. We've had this conversation a couple of times before. Just good, we didn't manage to get it over the line in the summer, and I think the club needs to be strong enough in January to just, if we need it in January, just go in with 15, 20 and try and tempt the waters and just say, let's get it done, let's get it over the line, help us with the other competitions come January rather than waiting for free for the summer if it helps for the rest of the season. My next choice after that would probably be, of the two of them, probably Schlotterbeck, because Dale Meccano, I think, even if he is free, I don't think he's that great. I would take him as a good. I'd take him as a free in terms of that. He could be a squad option, but of the choices of the centre backs, I think he's the one I'd want of the three of them.
Do you think he'd accept a squad option though? I don't think he would.
Probably not, especially with the World Cup in the summer and everything like that. And it might just be that he wants to come to another team potentially and maybe go back to France or even another team in Germany. I don't know, but whether he would come to Liverpool for a squad option, who could say? I think that might depend if Konate was to go as well, and then in the summer, if he would then decide, I can jump over there for free and maybe push for a starting place. Schlotterbeck in the last 2 or 3 seasons, it's one that you've been waiting to kind of happen. Everyone's been like, will it happen this summer? Will it happen that summer? And he's always kind of talked about it, and it just never kind of materialised. And I don't mean that just from Liverpool. I mean that to move from Dortmund to anywhere. Every time he's kind of linked as one of the ones that people expect to leave and just never seems to happen, whether that's through injury or whether that's through something else, tends to happen towards the summer, and he hasn't really moved. But I think every time he plays for Germany, he looks solid. He's obviously been a consistent player for Dortmund over the last couple of years. So I think he's a strong option to be there for us if we needed it to be. But my first choice is go straight in January, try and get Gay over the line rather than wait till the summer. Even if it is 15, 20 million instead of 3, I'd rather do that in January and get it done.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to that either. John Summers here mentioning, I think we need 2 centre-backs because of Gomez, the walking hospital bill that he is, and Konaté's contract situation. Reeve, of the 3 centre-backs that we've mentioned, Schlotterbeck, Upamecano, there you go, got it, and Gay, is there a preferred 2? Because they seem to all be very much of a similar profile of a ball-playing centre-back rather than a bruiser that Konaté currently is at the moment.
Yeah, before I say the 2 that I would prefer to come in, I'd obviously want Konaté to renew his contract. It's not as bad as he's been this season. I think there is so much value in someone renewing the contract. They already have a place in the team, they're already settled in the league, they've proven in the league. But to come in, out of them, I would obviously want Gay to come in. I think he's been the top of my list, even in the summer. I wanted them all summer. English, a homegrown player. The only thing I will say about Gay for me is his height and aerial duels. But then again, we played against Crystal Palace the other week, and he literally won every aerial duel. He was immense. So, that's just one of them things, height, But out of the 2 that we mentioned, I would probably say is Gay and Schlotterbeck. I haven't really watched much of Upamecano, but I think the only reason we're interested in him right now is because of the contract talk. As I said to them before we started on the live, Upamecano was actually up there with Konaté when we first signed them. They were both playing for Leipzig as a centre-back partnership. And the names on everyone's lips was Upamecano, Konaté, and I think we came out of that with the better player. And I still think we have the better player right now. But obviously Upamecano is a proven international centre-back, and we signed Matip on a free. So, and Matip was great for us for many years. So I don't think I'll be too unhappy with that either. But yeah, I think we definitely need to sign at least 1 centre-back. And if Konaté goes and Gomez goes, we definitely need to sign 2. And I'd probably be inclined to sign 2 regardless if Konaté stays or goes. Looking at the situation with Leone, obviously he's an up-and-coming centre-back, but we don't really know what he's going to be like when he returns because them injury, they can take a while to come back. And for young players, that can change the trajectory of a career. So I won't be taking any risks. So let's hopefully we can get Gay done in January and we can sign one of them other 2 in the summer and keep Konaté as well. That's the ideal situation.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Somebody here that's mentioned by John Summers as well is Castello Luqueba, who's currently playing for Leipzig at the moment, a left-sided centre-back, a left-footed centre-back. Ben, I guess that's another name to throw into the mix as well. Personally, there was rumours from, I don't remember who it was from, if it was anybody reliable. I think it was Bild, or Bild. They're okay. They can be okay. I think they were one of the first people to report the actual Wirtz news during the summer that he visited us rather than Man City. So I think they can be okay. They can be hit and miss. But they mentioned that obviously Luqueba's release clause, that's the word I was looking for, was 90 million euros, which is about 78 million pounds, thereabouts. But they said that the fee could be closer if it's acceptable to about 52 million pounds. That to me probably screams an awful lot more value for money, in my opinion. Of the 4 that were mentioned, so you have Upamecano, you have, I got it right that time, Upamecano, there's the 3rd time, Gahey, Schlotterbeck, and then you have Luqueba as well. Of those sort of 4, is there any 2 of those that would jump out to you regarding this? Or is there somebody completely from left field that hasn't been mentioned that you would want as a centre-back?
I've been of the opinion that next summer we will probably have to make more than 2 defensive signings, because something that doesn't get considered much right now, because it's not a topic to discuss at the minute, is that Tsimikas and Robertson are going to leave next summer, very likely. So, and Luqueba can play left back, maybe if needs be, in break less of an emergency kind of thing. So, yeah, I want 3 in two from that list in Lukeba and obviously Gehi. But the other name I want hasn't been mentioned at all yet. Probably will in the future. From Rennes, I think it is. Jeremy Jacquet. He's a young French prospect, and I think he's on the map from the centre-backs that are on the market. He's the closest one to Konaté's profile as a player, as a bulldozer, whilst also being a lot better with the ball to his feet.
Yeah, he's been a name that I've heard a couple of times as well. Not obviously linked to us, but just in passing of people commenting on it and his player profile and everything. Omna's here mentioning the reason why Palace would not sell in the summer is surely more pertinent in January. Not really, because they basically first of all, Glasner has not committed his future to the club, which means he's gone next summer as well. So the only reason that they didn't a lot of people don't seem to realize this as well about the summer, is that he was gone. He was a Liverpool player. The goodbye video was done. The welcome video was done. The media was done. It was the 11th hour of the 11th hour of the 11th hour. It was the last seconds that it got pulled. And that's because Parish decided that it was probably better off keeping him in the squad for the season rather than losing him. But it's not as if Liverpool left it late either. We submitted a bid straight after the Charity Shield game and had personal terms agreed prior to that. So they had over a month to sort themselves out. It's a different situation now if it comes to January, in my opinion, because now all of a sudden you're looking at Palace could already be set and end up having signed maybe a centre-back or two in January. And now all of a sudden they're like, yeah, he can go. We're sorted. We've got ourselves enough of a cushion. So we're grand. Like we can let him go. And then all of a sudden we'd have to pay maybe, as Dylan mentioned, 15, 20 million, whatever it is. Now, if they turn around and they say we want 35 million, take a long walk off a short pier, lads, because there's not a hope you're getting that. When you have a guy that's going to be free for everybody to come at in 4 months' time, 5 months' time from that, nobody's touching him for anything more, unless you're absolutely desperate for anything more than 20 million, in my opinion. So it all depends on what Palace do with their business in January. They may turn around and be like, look, we either get 20 million now that we can put towards signing the next Marquee, because these guys have such immense scouting networks that so many players could come in and do it for them, that they could sign Marquee's replacement and that guy's replacement for the 20 million that we end up giving them. But remains to be seen whether or not that will be done. One of the last topics that we'll throw out to the panel, and we'll sort of wrap this up in the next 5 minutes. John Summers asking here about a defensive midfielder to let Ryan play further forward and give us more options. I'll let you guys give me one midfielder that you would get, and we'll see how it goes from there. So, Ben, I'll go to you first. If you were to get a defensive midfielder, excuse me, next summer, is there anybody in particular that jumps out to you currently at the moment?
Elliot Anderson.
Fair enough. I like that choice. Dylan, how about you?
I wouldn't be too far away from that myself either, to be honest with you. The way he's played for the last season for Forest, I wouldn't be too far away from that. There's not really many I'd think that would come in and replace Ryan Gravenberch, but I don't think there's many other options.
I think Elliot Anderson is probably the best one. Are we going to go 3 for 3, Reeve, or do you have a wild card with somebody else?
I've got a different name, and it's another Palace player. I'd say Adam Morton.
But do you really think that he'd be able to? So I don't disagree with you with Adam Morton.
Why?
But if you're going to play with him as the DM, I think he gets ran through. He's very, very suspect defensively.
I think the idea is very similar to when we were going to sign Zubimendi, if that makes sense. Maybe I've said the wrong name to compliment Gravenberch, but I mean that type of profile of player in the team.
No, I get where you're coming from, but
yeah.
Do you mean him to play alongside Gravenberch or him to play as the lone 6?
I was thinking this is in like a pivot.
Yeah, no, in a pivot I get it, but then it kind of defeats the purpose of letting Gravenberch go forward, because then you're leaving Wharton there.
If you were, to be honest, if there was another one, it'd be Belieber from Brighton.
Yeah.
He's obviously like the Caicedo, Caicedo. So that would make more sense if you're letting Gravenberch go forward, the more natural destroyer.
Yeah.
But if I wanted another midfielder next summer, I think Gravenberch has got the capability to do that also. I would like Wharton, if I'm being honest.
That's my only gripe with Wharton. I just don't think he's good enough defensively. I think he's an 8 playing in a 3-4-3, and he's protected by a back 3 behind him, and his defensive numbers are just through the floor, unfortunately. I understand where people come from with the passing range, but I don't think people understand either. Palace have like 30% possession so far this season. Like he played like it's you need sort of that deep progressor, and I get that, but I just don't think what you gain in the progression from Wharton, you then lose in the defensive side of things, in my opinion. So you probably, if we didn't have Wirtz, I'd agree with you. He'd be a brilliant progressor that way, but I think you need a shin kicker, in my own opinion.
Yeah, I get that. I just think what our problem has been this season is not getting the ball in between the lines, and making that pass through. Like Van Dijk's normally very good at it, but to get that ball through to Wirtz when he's playing in between that defensive midfield, and I feel like Wharton's passing range would complement that quite well. But then again, McAllister, we might see more of that from McAllister, but he's been absolutely.
I think that's what we're missing is McAllister being back to his best, being that player. I think that's probably the biggest one, and that you're asking somebody like Szoboszlai to do that when that's not their game, and Gravenberch's game is that. But when you have only one of your pivots that is that, all of a sudden they'll just man mark the shit out of him, and then you don't have an auxiliary option, so to speak. But that is where we're probably going to leave it, guys, because we're coming up to 8 o'clock, and a lot of us have shit to do. I got dinner to cook, unfortunately. But we're going to leave it there. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to thank Ben, Dylan, and Ree for joining us for this lovely discussion, and everybody that was watching at home. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure that you have your notifications on for all future streams and videos so that you never miss out as well. If you're currently watching on X or Twitter at the moment, make sure to jump down into the comments below. You will see a link straight to our YouTube page. Leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment. We very much appreciate all the interaction, and we will see you guys again on Friday. And we'll all be back on Friday at 7 p.m. And then we'll have our pre-game stream on Saturday, and we'll have our post-game stream then on Sunday. So we'll see you guys then.